meaningful conversations during that session. We are now moving on to our next session of the day that has been curated by CEW and is centered around a theme that lies at the heart of India's sustainable cooling journey: assessing state infrastructure and building state level leadership and institutional capacity for a heat resilient future. As we discussed in the morning, heat waves have become more frequent and intense. Strengthening institutional capacity and infrastructure at the state level is not just important, it's extremely essential. We are privileged to have with us a distinguished panel of speakers who bring deep expertise and diverse perspectives to this critical conversation. I would like to now invite our esteemed panelists to join us on stage and take the session forward.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the post-lunch session, the most exciting session of the day. Please take your seats. And I can assure you that this is going to be anything but boring because I have with me three very exciting people. But first, a little bit of introduction to what we are going to talk about today. People in Delhi don't need a lot of introduction to heat waves and such, but I have some data here that our climate risk team says I should tell you. So in India, we had last year 536 heat wave days, which was the highest since 2010, which had 578. Now, to a layperson like me, the number of heat wave days being more than the number of actual days in the year is a matter for concern. We also have over 37 cities in the north and central India, which had daytime high temperatures of over 45 degrees Celsius. I know we take it a lot for granted in Delhi because we are used to 45 degrees Celsius, but when you compare this to your body's core temperature of 37 or less, we are operating in an ambient temperature that is higher than our internal temperatures. The impacts of this cannot be underscored. And there are serious effects that we see, but because we live in that milieu, we don't take, I won't say we don't take seriously, we don't notice on a minute to minute basis, but it's impacting us and our crops and our children and our future every minute. Now, we have been doing, CEW has been working on India's Climate Risk Atlas for about 5 years now. We started a while ago, and the reason we started this was because one size does not fit all. So when we have a national plan, we saw that when we used last 50 years data, and we got this data from many different sources, the Met Department, ISRO, Geological Survey, states, NDMS, SDMS, ward level, and then we made a composite to see how our 768 districts and sub-districts at a 25-kilometer radius. That's considered granular. However, it's still not. 5-kilometer radius is where we see differences in weather and climate and temperature depending on the construction, urbanization, etc. When we made this climate risk map, and we mapped vulnerability and exposure and resilience, and we saw that more than 75% of India's districts are at extreme vulnerability to floods, droughts, and in the coastal areas, even to cyclones. We also saw interesting things called swapping patterns, where districts that once had floods now have droughts and vice versa. Rajasthan has seen a lot of this happen. We also saw the clusters, more than 50% of high heat waves across India. This is across all states. No state is immune to any of these disasters and hazards. So how we plan our infrastructure going forward at the state level, at the city level also becomes very important. We evolved this work over the years. We have a monsoon planning map now. We have a heat action plan map, and that's what we're going to discuss today. And our project is called Enhancing India's Urban Heat Resilience, and it looks at the development of what we call HAPs, heat action plans, for 300 cities across India. And these plans are systems based, so they're going to look at how to reduce heat related illnesses, ward level risks. We're working at 6 states actively on this: Maharashtra, Odisha, Gujarat, etc. Tamil Nadu has done some great work on this, and we'll hear about that. So now there's a lot of data. I don't want to get into it. I want to hear from our experts. So we have with us today Mr. Saifi Rizvi. He's advisor mitigation to the National Disaster Management Authority of NDMA. He has some very interesting projects coming up. We also have with us Mr. Meghnad Behera, the senior disaster risk consultant of the Odisha State Disaster Management Authority, OSDMA. And we have with us Mr. M.S. Vedyanathan, the watershed management expert and focal point for heat resilience program of the Tamil Nadu Risk Reduction Authority, disaster risk reduction. So I'm going to ask our three panelists, Mr. Rizvi, Mr. Behra, and Mr. Vedyanathan, to give a very short introduction to your work, and then I'm going to pose to you some of your planned questions, and then I'm going to ask you the unplanned questions. So, Mr. Rizvi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So you call this the most interesting session,
Yes.
and I noticed that everybody is still awake. So just to introduce myself, I've been with NDMA for almost 2 years as advisor. I handle the charge of mitigation, and amongst my background, it is the lowest in number of years with regard to each one of you, even the younger ones, because I have only 2 years of so-called expertise. I'm an Indian Police Service officer, IPS officer, and I served for 16 years in UP Cadre and then 18 years in the security establishment in Delhi. So it's a completely different line of work I've been. Hence, I am a new mind, I have open ears, and I have been listening a lot, and I have learned that I am an avid learner also. So in this 2 years, I have managed to see that I've been able to get into the nooks and the crannies and the vacuums and the gaps that exist in all the 16 to 17 hazards that exist in India. Look at it from, give it a bird's eye view, and be able to connect it with the field level. Because I worked 16 years in the field. In my first posting in Allahabad as ASP in 1989-90, I remember in the first summer, first day I'd come back with burnt cheeks because it was 50 degrees Celsius outside. And that's where, that time I said, okay, it's really hot and all that, but now I know what's the difference between direct sunlight and ambient temperature. Ambient temperature is when you're in the shade. So if you say it's 45 degrees Celsius, it's not 45. If you're outside, it's 55. So that is the experience that brings all the theory and the practicality together. So having chatted with district magistrates during heat waves, during cold waves, UP has a lot of both, during floods, during heavy rain, during no rain for 2 years. So you know how it is dealt with practically. So one of my biggest problems with all the people who work with me at NDMA has been that please don't talk of guidelines, please tell me what to do. So that is the place where I come from, and it's lovely to be here today. And I've normally been working on heat, so you brought me into cooling, so I'll try and reverse all that, I think, and see what I can do. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Hello.
So
Thank you, sir. Myself, Meghnad Behra. I'm working with Odisha State Disaster Management Authority as a senior DRR consultant. Hello. Especially, I'm looking after shelter and disaster management. Shelter management in our state, we have around 909 multi-purpose cyclone shelters. That is, I'm looking after. With that, I'm also looking after heat wave management, cold wave management, lightning and snake bite, and also gender and inclusion issues in DRR. So I have a little bit experience in disaster management, basically in cyclone management with OSDMA. I have working with experience with UNDP, UNICEF, and some of the international non-government organizations. Last 5-6 years, I'm working with the OSDMA for different disaster management activities. So this is the forum. I am here to learn something from all of you. You have a lot of experience and expertise how to cool India. But we, the State Disaster Management Authority, we are not working for cool. We are working for how to reduce the impact of heat. For that we are working. So how to make our country cool, that I will to learn, and what we are doing in Odisha for heat wave management, I can share my experience, and we can share the experience of Odisha. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is M.S. Vaidyanathan. I am an agriculture engineering by profession and training. I served in the State Agriculture Engineering Department and retired as a superintending engineer in 2016. Post my retirement, I was picked up by the Disaster Risk Reduction Agency. This is the executive agency of the Tamil Nadu State Disaster Management Authority. So I had some idea about how to manage drought and how to manage floods in my work experience, but everything, it is kind of a serious internship under very senior officials who are experienced in disaster management to learn things and try to be of little extent, little bit help to them in framing things, guidelines, etc. So that is I know little bit of everything, so I am called as an expert. I am the focal point for heat wave management, trying to do a bit for heat wave management also.
I think the range of backgrounds and experiences here tells us that this is also a new field where we do not have entrenched expertise of many years. It's an emerging issue. And so the learning has to be in parallel to providing the solutions and planning for the future. There are three different things going on over here. I myself am not a heating and cooling person. I lead international cooperation at CEW. And one of the important things that I have been pushing into our international agenda with the G20 and the BRICS and the Quad is sustainable cooling systems, because while we are planning this at the state level and the national level, our supply chains and trade of these systems have to be ensured as well, to ensure that 25 years down the line, our appliances are not left bereft of services, parts, components, etc. So all of our planning at the same time needs building this global network to ensure our cooling systems. I see, and I will ask our experts here how they plan to mitigate their supply chain issues, given that we are in the middle of a lot of conversation now about tariffs and such. Incidentally has happened, which highlights the scope of this challenge. But also funds flow. A lot of it will depend on funding coming in for this project. Some of it is sovereign, some of it we need to raise from the market. And how do we do things like that? So I'll get to that. But first, we'll start with Mr. Rizvi, just because he's here in the middle. So you now have the Disaster Mitigation Fund, and I'm told that it's a very large corpus, and you want to get to deploying it. What are the three main priorities? What are the three main challenges? How are you going about it?
Mr. Rajendra Singh may have mentioned the size of the corpus in the morning.
Around 7,000 to 8,000 crores.
Oh, that's a very small number.
That's very small.
So,
okay, I have.
So there is the fund was created in the Finance Commission period of 21 to 26, FY21 to FY26, and at that time it was $30 billion. It was 2.28 lakh crores for 5 years and all of India. So if you divide that by 5, you get about 43,000, maybe slightly more than 46,000 crores per year. That 46,000 or that 2,28,000 is divided into 4 windows. Earlier there used to be just one window. Disaster ho gaya, relief mat diya. That's it. And then occasionally some bridges will get sanctioned and all that. So all that was basically a relief and response fund that was being used, with some of it being spent on reconstruction and rehabilitation. So 4 clear windows were created by the Finance Commission. One is for relief and response, which is 40%. Second is 30% for reconstruction and rehabilitation. So that's 70% in all for post-disaster. But 30% of the funds were kept for pre-disaster, for preparedness, for mitigation, for prevention. So that was divided into 2 parts, 10% for capacity building and training, and 20% for mitigation, purely mitigation. So of the entire 2,28,000 crores, 20% basically came to about 45,000 crores. Now to make it even more confusing, it would be nice if you make a little matrix to be able to understand these numbers, that some of it was kept with the center and the rest given directly to the states. So the states got 70% and the center kept 30%. So of this 45,000 crores, 30% mitigation stays with GOI. That's about 13,697 crores, roughly 14,000. So 14,000 over 5 years. Now this 14,000 of National Disaster Mitigation Fund, purely mitigation, the 20% window, of which 70% is available in the states, 20% is with us. What is with us in GOI is 13,697. Now this 13,697 we have to design programs based on various hazards. Now, mitigation of various hazards cannot be done in 13,697 crores. However, we have to make a beginning, because mitigation is something that is long term. It should be like a demonstrative project. It should show the state that this is how the money should be spent on a subtle program like mitigation. And we try to stay away from structural interventions, and we try to bring in non-structural and nature-based solutions. So like instead of a cement wall, make a gabion structured wall, things like that. So this becomes a very nuanced art when you go into each hazard. So we have to deal with earthquakes, we have to deal with floods, riverine floods, flash floods, glacial lake floods, riverine erosion, coastal erosion, and what have you. Lightning also is a big one, because lightning kills 35% of your entire fatalities in disaster. 35% die due to lightning. So all of these get classified as disasters. Recently, Government of India has brought in heat as in its scheduled list, which allows money to be spent from the mitigation fund on heat. So heat mitigation is a framework that has been created. So we got together in what we believe is the best way to go forward, the public-private way. So we took help from a lot of think tanks, and some of which are present here, and a lot of support from CEW also came to us. And we sat together and we created a heat mitigation framework. So the framework kind of gives you the lines on which you can build a program to spend money on heat. What you mentioned about some money should come towards heat. So this money will come, but 13,697 can there say maybe at the first stage 2%, 1%, 4%, 5% will come. So it's to show the weight, how to use to the states, how to use your state disaster mitigation fund. And then to show the way to the non-profits, that if you're spending money, or the corporations, if they're spending money on the regions or their jurisdictions, or they want to look after the interest of their workers, these are the 5-10 good things that you can do to mitigate heat and its impact. So that is the overall structure of the money part, of how money can be brought in to make heat action plans with proper cooling solutions.
That's very interesting. And I want to then immediately ask the two state counterparts that the percentages that you've got of this mitigation fund and this frameworks that Sorry is talking about, how is it translating
She wants a center state fight.
right off the bat? I'll also have a pop quiz for everybody on the numbers that Sorry is saying. He has said one number 5 times. I will ask after 7 minutes to anybody who can tell us this number. 2 numbers, in fact. I found another number very interesting. How many people
A Cadbury's chocolate as well?
There are lots of treats, yes. So,
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Odisha State Disaster Management or Odisha government has started heat wave preparedness since 1998 onwards. That year we have lost around 2,000 people due to heat wave. Then the next year was the super cyclone in 1999. So from 1998 onwards, we have started our heat wave preparedness. In 2015, Odisha declared heat wave as a state-specific disaster. Then our heat wave action plan started from 2016 onwards. After declaration of heat wave as a disaster. But heat wave, we have created a lot of awareness among the people how to save their lives. Basically, the other government mission was zero casualty to any disaster. That the Chief Minister has set the vision for all the departments, all the districts, how to save the lives. You see, in 1998, it was 2,100 something around the people died in heat wave. Now it has reduced drastically, but last year we have lost around 45 deaths due to heat wave. Because you know the western part of the state is very prone to heat wave, because there is a very less relative humidity, but that area is a very industrial belt, and sir also reviewed that situation last year, how we were lost so much of people because, and those who are died, they all are the truck drivers. They in front of the industry, they have to wait around 4 or 5 hours to go inside the industry and upload down their whatever materials available with them, then come back. It was and there is no shade for them, and inside the truck they are sitting. So a lot of pain they have to take to whatever they have to give to the industry or to take from the industry. That's why we have lost 45 people in Raulkela, Sambalpur, Jharsuguda, in the western part of the state. But the mitigation fund, really 2015 onwards, we are using the state disaster response fund, whatever the state share and the national share for heat wave management. And basically, we are giving ex gratia to the NOK next to the kin for that. And in case of other disasters, we are giving 4 lakhs as ex gratia. But for heat wave, we are giving only for 50,000. There is a reason of government of Odisha, because you know that the peak period from 11 to 3 is a peak period, and you cannot, you don't have to move from that time, but people are moving during that time. That's why intentionally they have decided if they less amount, the people may not move for that. That's why they are giving more 50,000. But for the how to reduce the impact of disaster, impact of heat wave, government of Odisha taken a lot of initiatives from the capacity building fund and also from the state budget. Whatever the available 10% for capacity building, from taking some of the monies from the capacity building window, we are taking lot of initiative like early warning dissemination or alert dissemination to the people. Then capacity building of different stakeholders like DC level officials, medical professionals, paramedical staff, medical officers, how they will manage the heat related illness, and also creating dedicated room for heat wave management. Then government of Odisha has taken a lot of efforts for making aware to the people through mass media, through electronics media, through social media. Even if sending lakhs of posters, awareness leaflets, we are also creating awareness. So this way, the whatever funds available with the SDRF window and also taking from the state budget, we are creating awareness and how to reduce the impact of heat wave.
That was very comprehensive. I just wanted to, so this training of paramedical, medical, etc., you are doing under the state budget? As it's a state initiative?
Yeah, it is state initiative, but we are not doing directly. We are giving funds to the Director of Public Health, who is organizing training program in their own, but funded by Odisha State Disaster Management Authority from the state fund, even if with the capacity building window from SDRF also.
So to understand then, defining heat waves as a disaster helped you get this multi-departmental support?
Yes.
That they also have the same mandate to prevent?
Yes.
Okay.
When the state declare as a state specific disaster, it's a mandate of state. All the department has the responsibility. You know, in Odisha, we have the state action plan, and every department have their SOP how to manage the heat wave in our state. So this year we are now I'm collecting the revised SOP of all the departments, and we will compile it and make we will bring it to a book form. Then it will circulate to all the departments, having each department have their own SOP and other department also. Then they can work together how to mitigate the impact of disaster.
I think these are fantastic best practices. I hope everybody's taking, because it's not just for the heat wave people. I mean, everybody can benefit from this sort of structured approach. I'll have a couple of more questions for both of you, but I'll go to Mr. Vaidyanathan. Sir, how are you approaching the Tamil Nadu model?
See, Tamil Nadu has been preparing the heat wave action plan since 2017. The primary focus was on providing advisories to the common public and various stakeholders among the public. Specific advisory to the, right from the street vendors to the migrant workers, to the aged people, pregnant women, particularly animal and animal welfare and nutrition, and health advisories. Health advisories were provided by the Department of Public Health. The Animal Husbandry and Veterinary Services used to provide the advisory for the animal and livestock. And as Mr. Behra said, we used to compile, and there used to be a state level meeting headed by the Chief Secretary with defining the roles and responsibilities for the various organizations. Nearly about 20-25 organizations are involved. See, the urban local bodies, rural local bodies who have a major role in responding to the heat wave emergencies. The World Meteorological Organization's report in 2024 was a big shrewd shock. It said 2024 was the highest, biggest warmest year compared to 2023, and there was an increase of 1.5 degrees centigrade temperature. We actually experienced it in 16 cities, ranging from 40 to 43.6 degrees of temperature for more than 20 to 31 days. So this was an eye-opener. So until such time, we were only providing advisories. Health department was providing the, all the necessary medical support. But no death was recorded. So the state government thought we should declare it as a state-specific disaster to become eligible for providing gracious relief and other relief through the SDRF. So the heat wave was declared as a state-specific disaster in October 2024. Then the idea we formulated guidelines for declaring death. You know, the normal tendency is everybody will come and say somebody has passed away due to heat wave. So it creates a huge problem for the administration to decide and provide support. So we have recently, with the help of the Public Health Department and other medical college, there are medical colleges, medical education department, there is a rural and urban services department. All of them put together, we have arrived at a methodology to declare death. That was the first step we have taken. Second, we were trying to find out a suitable agency to prepare a heat wave action plan for the major cities. So CEW came in handy to do that. So we have almost plans ready for 11 cities. Most probably by the end of the month we will be launching it. And we are simultaneously preparing the district-wise heat action plans also. And there are about 25 municipal corporations in the state. 11 we have completed, 14 municipal corporations plan also will be ready. The DM Act amendment recently passed out in Parliament and notified in the Gazette provides, gives an additional responsibility and defined responsibility to the municipal corporations. They will be the urban disaster management authorities. Otherwise, till now, they were handling response-related functions as a matter of routine. Now they are empowered with huge responsibility. So these 25 corporations will have enough support in terms of funding as well as in coordinating other departments to do their response activities. The health department plays a major role. You know, they need to have cooling facilities in hospitals. Maybe at least 10 to 12 beds with cooling facility and things like that. And there are some protocols evolved by the Ministry of Health, Government of India, for attending to the various heat-related illnesses, especially heat stroke and things like that. So we are concentrating on, providing training. The Ministry of Health, Government of India has prescribed many number of guidelines to provide training to the doctors, professionals then the paramedical staff, and it goes up to the, Anganwadi workers, village head nurse, including the ambulance staff. So CEWD, they conducted a training for the entire health department at one go, training of master trainers, and the department conducts the training down below. That has been completed for the entire state. Even we did this during last year also. So it's a continuous process. There will be attritions, there will be transfers. So we need to be doing that. We are focusing on training the health department staff. Similarly, the animal husbandry department has a very detailed plan of action to provide, ensure water availability in the urban centers and rural centers by providing water fountains and water tubs, etc. They also have an ambulance facility recently, initiated, especially to attend the emergencies relating to animals and livestock.
Okay.
So other mitigation part of it, we have to
Yeah.
take it up.
So
See, the majority of the funds provided for mitigation are under
Mr.
SDMF
I'll
goes to attend only goes towards flood mitigation.
flood material. So I want to come back to Mr. I'll come back to you on another specific point. Now the veterinarian point is something again that we don't mention in our policy documents, but that's a real situation that we have on the ground. But I have a different question for you. All of this has come out, all the things we're discussing have come from identifying heat waves as a disaster. But what about the standard way of life? Correct? Because all of these are triggered along with a disaster warning or a disaster situation still. Now, where is our foresight or our planning coming in the way we're designing our cities or looking at, let's say, 15 or 20 years down the line to sort of mitigate not just the disaster, people dying is an extreme point. How do we change our city systems? Is that within the purview of what you're planning?
Yes, definitely. So, mitigation of heat, there are two lines. One is active cooling, one is passive cooling. So, active cooling is what you guys, I'm sure, are PhDs at, and I really do not need to talk about that. And how active cooling should spend least amount of energy, that also I'm sure you guys you're mitigating the negative impact of the active cooling, which is mitigating the impact of heat. So running your ACs at 28 and not 23 is possibly one of the reasons. Having 5-star air conditioners and not 3-star ones. So that is basically active cooling in short, fans and coolers and everything. India has a very good national cooling plan, which is very detailed, and I took another look at it shortly before coming here, 126 pages of detail, and very scary graphs it's got, that whatever you have in 2017-18, it grows by about 30% when you go to 2022-23, and when it extrapolates to 2037-38, 15 years down the road, everything is double in size. And the amount of air conditioning, amount of what they call space cooling, is really something which is to be really worried about. But that problem is there, it is coming at you, and there's not much you can do. You can't just write reports about it. Your original question, or rather your main question, was that apart from just heat being a disaster and people dealing with fatalities regards heat, what else is there? So I can tell you this, that dealing with heat in North India for sure, because of my experience in the field for 16 years, is very structural. It is, I've been seeing it for years in the state, that before every heat season, the district magistrate will put out an advisory, a little order will go out to all his departments, as Mr. Vaidyanathan was mentioning, to the animal husbandry department in the district. I'm not even talking about the state. That, tell all the people who have livestock as a profession that they should do this, this and this. Then for crops, the farmers for years, our Pusa Institute and various other institutes have been working on heat resistant varieties, on how to have heat tolerant varieties, how to have cold tolerant varieties. So a lot of research has been done, and all of this has been done without a mitigation fund or without a response fund and outside the disaster management framework. So to think that heat can only be dealt with through this window or this ministry is not the case. Okay, the camera is not happy with that. But you know, it's protesting from the electronic side that you cannot disregard us. So yes, energy is a very important part of dealing with this problem. However, you know, this thing about changing school timings, changing timings for workers at construction sites, all these are endemic in our system. They are structurally ingrained. The district magistrate does pass orders, especially in fog times and winters and in the heat times, that you should do it this way. But then the larger question of what you mentioned, how should you do passive cooling? So passive cooling comes from long-term work. Suppose you're building a new city. Do you want to make it a vertical 100-storied city, or you want to make it a cluster of 20 cities with smaller buildings and wider open spaces? But for that you need a lot of space. So there are a lot of balanced questions that you have to answer before you get there. So that's one very big question. Then there is greening. So if you do greening, should you do greening wherever you feel like, or wherever there's a patch of land? Or should you go to the remote sensing agency, get them to remote sense which are the heat at risk heat areas or heat zones in that city of yours, and then figure out यहाँ पर greening करेंगे तो ये हो सकता है. So doing it in a scientific way is what we intend to do by bringing out heat action plans. By putting a little bit of money behind the heat action plans, you're generally speeding up the work and you're speeding up the spread of that good word. So all of this comes together. A heat action plan is essentially putting together the latest knowledge, putting together what is structurally known and done, and just putting it out there so that it becomes standardized and institutionalized. So that is a really long answer to your short question.
It's not a long answer, and because last week I was with the MMRDA commissioner, and they've got a very large grant to redo. I'm from Bombay originally, and he said, you know, we need another 10 years, but now we've got the grant, and so they're Bombay has this thing where we concretize our roads, and they're concretizing my locality in Bandra right now, in Bandra and Khar, and that's it's a wicked problem, right? You have to grow, it's full of people. We have, I think, 3.5 crore people, and they have 2.54 crore or something like that. So I think this, where you are talking of designing, and which is what plays into 2035, 20 and beyond, becomes, I think, just as critical, and which is where I want to ask Mr. Behra the question, that where is the industry coming in over there? And I just don't want to say that, you know, the government gives some instructions and they do. Are they involved in this process? Because I see government putting a lot of thought and muscle behind this, and money. But what's with the industry in your experience?
Yeah, you see, industry department, labor and labor department also actually involved in heat wave management process. But this year, the collectors have been instructed by a special relief commissioner and chief secretary to specifically in the nearby the industries they have to do or construct some of the cooling sets for those people, those who are working in that area. And also in some of the construction sites, they have also constructed some of the sets for the laborers. But mitigating the impact or effect of heat wave, you know, they have funding provision for in the CSR activities. But I don't know whether they are spending for something for the heat wave mitigation or not. It's not.
But so is there a requirement? I mean, is there some requirement for them to do for industry? Let's say MSMEs in particular, very large companies, yeah, they take care of their health and safety, etc.
So I mean, from the disaster management side, there's no requirement. There is nothing mandatory, but the labor department has a very long history and a fairly good kind of detail on what should be done for labor in heat and all that. just day before yesterday, they put out a good advisory as well, which they do every year. And the labor department is very well represented in every district. So, and not just the state government's labor departments, but the central government labor department also. It's a really, really involved and deep system that they have. And the Factories Act, the Labor Act, the Industrial Disputes Act, to implement all these acts, the system has been created for the last 70, 80 years. So they come up with anything that affects the labor. So they are able to push industry into doing enough for labor for their comfort, and so that you don't have fatalities and you don't have various other issues that are accompanied with a heat wave. The other interesting thing that has recently started coming up is the infusion of insurance schemes. So a few non-profits have started working, and a very few number of corporates have gone in for it, where in the event that a worker is not able to report for his construction labor duty, he is able to, and the heat has crossed a certain threshold of say 43 degrees Celsius 2 days running, he will get a direct payout from the insurance company. So these are called parametric insurance companies,
yes.
but these need to be increased, so they will be of great help to workers in the unorganized sector, which is 93% of our working population. So insurance is something which is very little talked about, but insurance by corporates, by non-profits, for their self-help groups is I would say really a must now. And in our entire definition in mitigation, we have included disaster risk insurance as a part of mitigation.
Actually, in Odisha, the labor department, they have also notification regarding the rescheduling of timing from 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 or 10:30 or 10. Then from 3 o'clock onwards, they have rescheduled the labor timing. Like the school also, they have in the morning school also, up to 10, there is rescheduling of the time from 6 to 10. So the labor department is very active and different aspect of how to mitigate the effect of heat wave.
Mr. Vaidyanathan, do you want to add anything to these 2 points, one on the from the Tamil Nadu context?
I think I may take some time to answer, get into the exact
But you have to
question.
stay short, because I want to go to the audience and ask you questions. I also want to ask them some questions.
See, the
Yeah.
plain truth is that the rising temperature is tolerated very well by the common public. We have given a new name called heat wave, and we are trying to,
Structure it.
prescribe,
Yeah. Structure the whole.
structure the whole thing.
Yeah.
There are traditional ways of managing heat by the community. In Rajasthan, they wear a large headgear. Tamil Nadu farmers, they have a headgear. Punjabis, they have a headgear. So there are ways of managing that. There can be no state worse than Rajasthan suffering from heat, but still they are managing it. See, the point is, this present set of whole thing leads to some health issues for the common public. So are we able to provide thermal comfort in hospitals to be able to give protection to the people who come with some complaints? Are we able to provide thermal comfort to the schools for the young kids? Are we able to provide thermal comfort to the working class, especially in factories, in highly temperature zones, etc., steel plants, furnaces and things like that? These will be the critical issues we may have to focus on as a first priority. Parallelly, we can work on cooling solutions. You know, it is not out of place to mention, every city has still slums with the coverage of asbestos sheets. We know pretty well that asbestos gives a carcinogen effect. So people may affect, people live under tin sheets, people live under flex boards. But the problem is they will be encroaching some land and they will be living there. If you give some support, it becomes regularized. That's why the administration would always like to hesitate to extend that support. We talk about heat cooling roof in Telangana. NDMA has published literature, A5 size book about the cool roof. I think we need to work from the bottom up. This is a beautiful building.
If I may come in on the
Please,
cool
sir.
roof thing,
Yes, sir.
just to add to the knowledge of
Please,
the
sir.
group here, if I may.
Please, sir.
Because you mentioned NDMA school roof, that's why I'm jumping in, if I
No,
may.
no, absolutely. Please
Yeah.
go ahead. It's a
So
conversation.
these cool roofs and basically slums, large portion of urban population. So we've we've just started digging that everything cannot be done by government, everything cannot be done by the municipal authorities. A lot has to be done by the people themselves. So if the people have an asbestos sheet, why don't they paint it? Paint it white, paint it. There's a concept of white roofs, blue roofs, and green roofs, all with different theories, which the young professionals here can tell us. But that paint, what does it cost? So one estimate is 40,000 rupees for 30 square meters. That is a lot,
That's a lot of money.
and it lasts for 5 to 7 years.
at
So
best.
one thing I can give an idea to the think tanks represented here, please call the top 3 big paint companies and ask them why. I mean, when you have such a large market for white roofs, where people would want to reflect the heat from and reduce the temperature in their slum by 5 degrees or 4 degrees, why would they not do it if your paint was affordable? So you'd have a mass base of your product selling if you just cut those prices. So that's a good business idea where we can bring in the private sector and they'll all get very excited about it. So that, because you mentioned cool roofs, so I got excited.
No, I think we need things like this because while, what we try for are perfect solutions, and we will not have perfect solutions ever. But something like this, and these are the trigger points, because once it becomes approachable, then other solutions can come in. Because not everybody can buy a BLDC fan. We're not able to buy roof paint. So, yeah. So I'm going to ask, are there questions? I can take 2 questions. I want them to be questions, not commentary. Because sirs here, they have a lot of knowledge. I would like us to take their knowledge out. Are there any questions? Yes, please. Please tell me your name, tell us your name and a question.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Niyoshi. I'm a research associate at AEEE. So I have 2 questions. One is, can you give an example of how a state level, a district level, and a city level heat action plan coordinates with each other? Like any one concrete example of how they are actually planned in accordance. And then 2, can you talk about the limitations of like the scope of an NDMA or an SDMA? Because as you said, a lot of these issues are much larger. So in your understanding, what is the limitations of your agency right now, and how, if possible, can that be expanded?
Question is to
To all of you.
So I'll quickly give a short response to that. So you see the coordination between central and state and district, I would say is merely theoretical on paper. These things are difficult to happen because the initiation of a heat action plan at the center and at the state and the district may happen on day 1 with everybody shaking hands, but the completion and the process by which it is done and the direction that it takes, maybe the correct direction but a slightly different one, is basically because everybody has their own individual authority to do what they do. So that is why the center puts out a certain guideline just to give you a general broad overview, and then the state does whatever it wants for the state specific to the state's needs. And each district has separate needs, so you have to have a district oriented plan. Now, are they coordinated on exactly what they are recommending? Very difficult to say. No, I haven't done any such research as yet, but the point remains that if they are doing 5 things, like I'm so happy to hear that Tamil Nadu has 11 plans already done and 24 they are planning on. So that's an extremely good achievement. Now, I don't wish to go and even find out what they are doing. I would generally speak to Mr. Vaidyanathan and check with him that have you just spoken of shelters, and have you just spoken of cool water provisioning in the street somewhere, or changing timings of schools? Or have you done something slightly more long term or medium term? So that is the general way that the center in a very light regulated environment works. You cannot work in a tight regulation. Shortcomings, we keep discovering them every day, and the biggest shortcoming is implementation and coordination. Coordination is a very big problem, and that is why at NDMA we started something called CODA, Committee on Disaster Risk Reduction. For every hazard we have started, so we do series of meetings, we get everybody to talk to each other. Like right now, we have a 2-day psychosocial workshop going on, where nobody was talking to nobody, so we are all now talking. They must have had lunch together, which you guys made me miss. I had lunch with you. So the talking has started, and the psychosocial interventions will basically, we will not be duplicating each other's work. We will be not replicating what was done 10 years ago. So things like that.
Yeah, Sarah has already told there is a problem in the interdepartmental coordination everywhere in India. That is also going on already. That's why the discussion is going on also. In Odisha, each department has their a nodal officer for disaster management. Each department, and below that there is a suppose or housing and urban development department. The nodal officer, housing and urban development department, you will look after the urban local bodies, how they are managing. But you see, in case of Bhubaneswar and Khordha is the district headquarter, Bhubaneswar is the state headquarter, and Bhubaneswar is the municipal corporation, Khordha is a district headquarter. In case, who is the commissioner of Bhubaneswar municipal corporation, his rank is higher than the collector Khordha. In that case, suppose Khordha is the district disaster management authority, but sometimes if the officer don't have any attitude, both of them, then it works well. If you suppose I think I am the senior officer, I will not look up, I will not talk with the collector, or collector is I am the senior. That is also a separate thing. That's why we have a coordination mechanism in our in the Cuttack and Bhubaneswar case, the Revenue Divisional Commission, who is the higher in rank, who is coordinating among the two. So there is a coordination, but the way coordination is required is not there. Yeah.
I think that, no, that's fine. I'm just saying that he just mentioned this very specific, because they are human beings, right?
Yes, that's true. That's true. But in disaster management, when the chief secretary is giving instruction, or the additional chief secretary, who is the managing director of OSDM or special relief commissioner, its instruction comes from the higher authority. It's okay. The coordination is okay. That's why our heat wave preparedness starts from January onward. Review of the additional chief secretary, then review of the chief secretary, then sometimes review of the minister, and also this year the present chief minister has reviewed the situation to bring the coordination among the officers, among the districts. And Sir already told that action need district specific.
Right.
Equal action need not required for all the districts.
Okay.
So that is there.
No, I agree. Since we started with your cool loop, did you finish your point? Before we...
No, we can talk hours together.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in the morning, there was a mention about the indoor cities work by a district collector and, or somebody. What was the inspiration for him to do that? These guidelines, these instructions, manuals always exist. But it's only somebody who puts the first step forward and takes it very deeply, takes a deep dive and finds a solution, that becomes a success.
I agree with this, because no number of written things on paper, and I say this, I've only been in think tanks for 5 years, so I can say this because I was in industry before. But
So
yeah,
it's
so,
up to
yeah.
the...
So somebody has to take the initiative. I agree. So I have another...
I can add here, this year we have prepared heat action plan of 10 cities. 10 urban local bodies. But there, the executive officer of the urban local body is very lower in rank to the collector.
Yeah.
The coordination is very good there.
That's
With the support of CEW, we have prepared the heat action plan. It was fantastic.
That's good.
But in case of it is a rank is higher, it's our bureaucracy. We cannot do anything.
Sir, it's us Indians doing Indian things. But this is where I come to an important question because from the India perspective, and I want to ask this in my capacity as an international coordination person, a lot of this planning, especially infrastructure level planning that we're doing, depends on supply chains and of these appliances, of these systems that we don't have ecosystems yet to develop. How are we working this into the security? Because at some point this will become a national security issue because the population will be seriously impacted by various types of this thing. So how are you working with other, I would say, central ministries that are looking at our external supply chains, etc.? Are you doing something like that? And the second thing is, where does external data, because I see over here the plans for the HAPS include the MEL system where you are monitoring and evaluating and you're evolving your plans, etc. And I understand the government doing a lot of things, but where does society, I won't just say civil society, but how does the public engage with this? So one, what is India doing to secure its supply chains in the long term to ensure that we have everything we need to handle this? And two, anybody can say, what is the societal contribution to this beyond, what a normal citizen can or cannot do?
Yeah, so national security linked to disaster resilience is a very large field. It's a growing field. It's not just linked to heat. There are several other things that come into it. The old story about upper riparian and lower riparian, the thing about glacial lakes in certain areas, and those glacial lakes mysteriously coming off and flooding downstream in another country. Then people are talking of cloud seeding. So can cloud seeding be done at scale, which can impact the cropping system of if not a country, a small region? So there are several new stories that are coming up, and these aren't just stories. There is a lot of research that has been done. There's a lot of research that has been done to counter such research also. So there is a growing field on that. And we remain in touch with the security agencies on this. It is a growing field for us. We are discussing it, we are thinking about it. And the one little aspect that you mentioned in your first question I'd like to dwell upon was the point about infrastructure. So you see, heat in itself impacts not just human health, but also animal health, as Mr. Ravichandran, as Mr. Vaidyanathan was mentioning. Human health, animal health, crop health. And in actual infrastructure as in rail, transport, roads, power, and finally water. The impact of heat on water and water being a scarce national resource. So these are the 5 areas. Each one is a science where there can be 100 PhDs at any point of view. So infrastructure, when you mentioned your role as an international person, speaking Bengali, living in Mumbai, so you're international. So infrastructure, you see, we were just talking to the Delhi Metro people yesterday. So I asked them this question, that your metro goes to 20 degrees in the tunnel and suddenly comes out at 48. So how does your rolling stock, how does your signal lines, how does your track, how do all these things deal with it? So he says, our big problem is not heat, our big problem is cold. So he says our system that we have developed, the kind of steel that we use on our railway lines is all pre-stressed steel. So regular railways steel, the tracks that are laid are de-stressed before every summer season starts. But these are pre-stressed, so there are slightly better technology. So if you must have read in the papers, in Europe, 32, 34 degrees centigrade, the metro lines shut down. So because they're used to 25, 26, they are moving to 33, 34. Their infrastructure is not able to cope with the heat. We are able to deal with heat. But if we have declining temperatures in winters, then the contraction part, maybe our infrastructure is not geared to deal with. So that is a problem that they are looking at, the infrastructure guys. And I guess I'm talking too much and your time is also ended. And your last point was that about what can everybody else do. So what everybody else can do, I mean, I'm not saying as in individuals, but corporations have a very big role in this. So I noticed that corporates, they basically work a lot on, just their own system. But there is a great need for, like, we talk about startups, India being a very successful startup nation. But everybody goes towards the low-hanging fruit. Nobody goes towards the higher hanging fruit, like a simple example of glacial lakes. We have 7,500 glacial lakes in India, which are above quarter hectare. Each one of them is at risk, but the highest risk ones are 200. There is very difficult to find a startup or a large company or a small company or a medium-sized company that can give us a system that puts an automated weather station up there at 5,000 meters. Very difficult to find. So there is a lot of money in CSR, there's a lot of money with non-profits, but everybody wants to do capacity building on climate adaptation and climate prevention and all that stuff. So going for the difficult tasks is the thing that all of us should do. That would be one big change that we can bring about.
Very short because
That's
they are
okay.
not
Yes,
sent
yes,
us
yes.
off the stage now.
Oh yeah. No, one thing, managing heat wave or mitigating impact of heat wave or infrastructure. So it's a very needed, very holistic approach. Everybody should be very responsible in their activities, taking the corporate, the individual also. If everybody will be responsible or take the responsibility how to reduce the impact of heat wave or how to make then it can be possible. Only government cannot do anything, or if everybody depend upon the government will do that, government cannot do it. So the role and responsibility has to play everybody. Then we can reduce the impact of heat wave.
So one thing you said in the beginning, I want to close with this, the use of social media and pamphlets.
Yeah.
I know my mother reads pamphlets in Delhi, right? If something comes, she reads that. So it's not just social media, but also the pamphlet thing that it's a very old technique, nobody takes it seriously. But that's and this sort of complex ideas can also be communicated to households. And we underestimate the power of households, of the influencers in households, people like my mother who are involved in this. We only think that the experts will solve the problems. So I would take his point, which he started with, the communication of what the country needs to know, what we need to be prepared for, how to prepare for that, through various media have to be communicated simply without jargon, so people can act on these things and not just the government. Thank you, gentlemen. I can go on and on and on, but we have a time restriction. But thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. I want a big hand, and I don't see any speak. And everyone who thought I forgot the question, I did not. I want someone to say what was the 5-digit number Mr. Rizvi said 5 times when he started. Yes, 697.